People or some people kicked in the door, or they came into our home, they broke down our door, and I don't know what's going on, and my girlfriend is hurt. Okay, so nobody in the history of ever, never in the history of ever, has anybody called the police on the police. People don't do that. I've never heard that happen before, unless you are a person who feels vulnerable and an officer's trying to pull you over somewhere. You might call the cops and say, I feel uncomfortable, I don't know what to do. Sometimes they tell you to drive your car to a location where maybe a precinct or somewhere else where people can see what's happening. But generally, people don't call the cops on the cops. Okay, so we already know that for a man to be calling saying, some people are here, they broke into my home, and something happened to my girlfriend, I don't know what's going on. He obviously did not know it was the police. Now, the people who live in the building, some people were sleeping. They don't know until they heard shots. They didn't know anything was happening. But there were people who have said that they heard knocking, but they never heard a return voice explaining who was on the other side of the door. So now, I don't know about you, but I grew up in the hood. And I've had to say this before. I grew up in the hood. So when I used to hear it, when I lived in the projects, somebody knocking on the door, and I would see my parents do this, if we say, who is it? And you don't respond, we don't open the door. The officers, after they're saying whatever, or they knocked, they don't. Now, this is in their report that I read the other day. And again, Lanita, if I'm wrong, you could correct me if you're still here. But based upon what I read the other day, is that the officers said they heard some movement in the house. So they decided to use the battery ram, basically their equipment, to break the door down. So at the point that they break the door open, Kenny fires a warning shot, which, by the way, is legal in Kentucky. It is legal to fire one warning shot if you feel your life is in danger. Now, again, if you understand this situation, right, and understanding that the police can have a no-knock warrant, which doesn't mean they don't necessarily physically knock. It means that they don't have to wait for you to come and open the door. They can enter your home however they choose to do so, and they don't have to announce themselves. So don't let them get you mixed up in the use of the word knock, and you want to be able to say, well, they didn't knock on the door. That's not what the no-knock warrant means. It means that they don't have to knock, they don't have to announce themselves, and they can use whatever force is necessary to come into your home. And what we found out in the stipulations for the no-knock warrant is that they don't even have to have on, obviously, a uniform, and second of all, they don't have to have the body cameras on. Okay, so they go into they knock down the door. They go into her home. Now, I hate when I start talking to y'all, my lips always get dry. Golly. So, hold on. Somebody's texting me. Let me see who it is and what they're saying. Maybe they're telling me I'm saying something wrong. Okay. So, where am I at? Okay. So, basically, Kenny fires a warning shot. At the point that he fires a warning shot, the officers on the other side of the door return something like 30 plus bullets into the house. They're shooting like crazy. And again, in their report that I read, not the police report, but the reports that came out of the police department that made it into the press. So I'm saying that because we know that the media, sometimes they put out inaccurate information, but there were quotes where they say that there was one officer on the scene who said to another officer, which is the officer who at this point has been fired, that they said to him, what's wrong? Like, yo, chill out. You doing too much. That happens to be the officer who was fired because the department determined that he fired at least 10 shots into the home on the other side of a window with blinds that were closed. And the acting police chief's language that was used in order to fire him was that his shooting, the shooting was reckless. He put people's lives in danger, that it was incompetent, and I mean a whole bunch of other words that was used to describe the behavior that happened that day. And this officer, now mind you, as an aside, this officer is also the same person that when his photos were posted online as being involved in the murder of Breonna Taylor, women came forward to say he was the same officer who promised to take them home when they were inebriated, and he took them somewhere else and sexually assaulted them. And this information is known. There was another man, a black man, who was dating one of this officer's former girlfriends, who says that this officer used his power to torture him, to destroy his relationships and his and his credibility in the community, who had him arrested. And all of the charges against this black man were dropped eventually. Hold on, Chief even used the word shocks the conscious. Right. Okay, so that's right, Lanita. The chief even said that this officer who they fired for shooting over 10 times into Breonna Taylor's home and surrounding apartments, one of which had a 5-month-old baby sleeping in it. Hold on. I think y'all, no, now you definitely can't. So one of which of the apartments had a 5-month-old baby in it. This particular officer, the language that was used was that his behavior, his actions that night shocks the conscience of those individuals within the department who are making a decision about firing him. So we are not confused. You know, when I listen to people with this thing that, oh, well, you know, the officers were justified. No, even the department is saying that the officer was not justified in returning that type of fire into a situation where they didn't even know who was on the other side of the door. Guess what? I am very good friends. One of my closest friends is the former chief of police in New York. And there was a moment when the chief of police in New York, right? Because police commissioner and then the chief of police, right? There was a moment when a shooting happened where a guy either had a knife, he lunged at police or what have you. And I was trying to understand the officer's behavior, that they shot this. Their actions was to shoot this man, a mentally ill man who had a knife. And I called him and I said, I just don't understand. And he said, well, they were wrong because you have to take cover. So if Kenny shoots one shot, just one shot, and you're outside the door, the officer's responsibility is to take cover, get behind cars, do what you do when white boys do all kinds of crazy things. They fight officers, white women, they scream and holler, they fight people, they try to drive their cars into them. We've seen white women jump into the police cars and drive away, and the officers chase them down. Somehow or another, they find a way to apprehend white people without killing them. I don't know how it happens, and I'm not saying that no white person is ever shot. That's not my point. I'm saying that in situations, particularly when white folks are not armed and dangerous, they find a way. They spit at them, exactly. They do all kinds of crazy shit. And somehow they find a way to apprehend these folks, white people, without killing them. So and again, I'm not just saying this. This is not me just making this up. The police chief, the acting police chief, and whoever else is responsible for making a decision within the department, they obviously agree, because they fired this guy by saying that the way in your actions put people's lives in danger and you got a woman killed. So when we say we want the officer also to be arrested and charged, I mean, this is not far-fetched. You don't get to when the police chief fight for an act, that is called human resource business. And we want them to do good human resource business, right? But we're not talking about human resources. We're not talking about human resources. We're talking about human rights. So the police chief can do human resources. What we're asking, or what we're demanding that Daniel Cameron do, is human rights work. Protect the civil and human rights of a woman who was murdered for no reason in her home. Okay, let's go to some other facts. The warrant, right? Because that's the other thing that Mr. Lucas that was his thing. That's what he leaned on when he was yelling and screaming at me and telling me that I was not capable of leading the Black Lives Matter movement, and that he was more capable, and that he's done more for black people than anyone else has ever done. He kept referencing the warrant and why a judge would sign a warrant. Obviously, she was running packs out of her house if the judge signed the warrant. Well, what we know, not because Tamika Mallory is saying it, not because Lanita Baker, the attorney, is saying it, not because Ben Crump is saying it, not because Kenny Walker is saying it, but because the police department itself put the officer who lied on the no-knock warrant, or the application to obtain a no-knock warrant, they put him on administrative leave, which means that they know something has happened and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do. Now, I'm not trying to say that these departments are righteous and that they're going to do everything right. No, they're trying to figure out how to do the least. So they put one on administrative leave, then they'll fire another, and they basically wait to see what we're going to do. How far are we going to go? You know, if the movement is strong and there's pressure on them, then they got to do a little more and a little more and a little more. But their intention is to do as little as possible. However, the fact that they put this officer who lied on the no-knock warrant on administrative leave, it gives you an indication that they realize that his behavior got someone killed. Now, the problem that the department has, in my opinion, this is Tamika speaking, the problem that the department has is that once you fire this officer and potentially charge him for the murder of Breonna Taylor, he's going to come back, more than likely with his lawyers, and show where they've been lying all the time. They lie all the time to get warrants to go in people's homes and to do other criminal acts of what they call police work. Okay, so he's going to be able to show where that behavior of lying on an application for warrants and other documents is actually acceptable. So now you open up a whole different can of worms, because if you look at the initial police report that described what happened to Breonna and the incident in total, the whole incident, the police report says that there were no injuries, and yet there was a woman on the ground shot with 8 bullets in her body. But yet the report said that there were no injuries at the home. So that means, and that's a different person who wrote the police report. So that tells me that this is a normal practice of them lying on these documents. And so J.W. Lucas, who seems to know so much, should know, since he's such a black leader, that Ida B. Wells once said that the people who commit the murders write the reports. So the people who are responsible for killing Breonna Taylor are the same ones writing the reports. Interesting. Now, why would the judge sign it? Why would the judge? Well, first of all, she was presented with lies. I'm going to give this judge, I saw her comments that she thinks about Breonna Taylor all the time and that it hurts her that this whole situation happened and that she did review the warrant application and she signed it based upon what was there. I'm going to give her some type of, I'm going to try to understand where she may or may not be coming from. But I can show you a slew of judges who are down with the police department, the DA, and others, and a slew of judges who have lied, who have falsified documents on their own, who have unjustly sent black and brown people to prison. So it doesn't in any way surprise me or make or have me feeling like it's no way that this judge could possibly be lying, because they do it all the time. They do it all the time. So when you see us out there protesting and you hear us chanting, saying the whole damn system is guilty as hell, we really mean that. That's not some shit that people just made up. That's a real statement. It's not just a chant. It's a statement. The whole system, the judges, the courts in general, the police officers, the freaking district attorney, sometimes the attorneys that even the paid attorneys that's working with you, but surely enough, the attorneys who are presented to you or given to you, the public defenders by the court. These people work together. Okay? And if they're not coordinating, at times they can just be just don't care enough to actually do their jobs. So the judge probably, hopefully in the future, because a woman has died based upon her actions and her involvement in this situation, you want to hope that she will take the time to ask some more questions, to ask for proof. Because guess what? The lies that this man told in order to obtain the warrant have now been debunked by the Postal Service. He said the lie on the warrant was that the lie on the application. It's really important that we get this right, because I want you all to be armed. You don't have to be worried that, she wasn't shot in her sleep, so now, maybe the story is not as powerful and as egregious and as messed up and everything else. You don't have to be worried about that, okay? You don't have to worry about it. It's an egregious act of murder, and you don't have to worry about that, because the facts are strong enough to stand on their own. The facts are strong enough to stand on their own. Okay? So he lied and said that the Postal Service, the post office had reported suspicious packages going to Breonna Taylor's home. Okay? So the postmaster, the person responsible for that particular post office, says they never reported that. They never felt that any packages going to her home were illegal or suspicious. There was never any indication of that. So that was a lie, because the police department can't just make it up. You can't just say the post office said this and they didn't actually say it. So it was a lie, and that lie was used. Okay, the lie was used to take to the judge who signed the warrant, so that officers could show up at a woman's house and execute a warrant that was based upon falsified information. So now, when people say, when someone asks, why are we fighting for Breonna Taylor? I can't, I want to say F-bombs and everything else, but I'm trying today to keep my cool and not do that. It's like, that could have been me. And she used to date a guy several years ago who was a drug dealer. Okay, well, first of all, I don't even know dude. I'm not gonna speak on dude. He may have been, he may not have been, but the association with someone is a death sentence. Nah, we're not gonna do that. And furthermore, if that is in fact the case, then they should be running up in Beverly Hills and on Park Avenue and in Westchester and in all the rich neighborhoods around this country, because matter of fact, they ought to run up in the White House and shoot the president and his wife and everybody else and his children, okay? Because all of these people are associated with some of the biggest drug lords that have ever existed. Well, I don't know dude's name that Breonna Taylor used to date, but I promise you, if he did sell drugs, he damn sure ain't selling as much as the pharmaceutical companies that's pumping pills into our people, and the people that are bringing freaking crack, well, not crack, bringing cocaine that is being turned into crack in our communities, and all the other drugs and the guns and the exploitation of black people. Do you understand? Like, you talking about drugs? What? Like, they selling drugs to our people, and they've been selling drugs to us. Okay, no one ran into the home of man. Y'all get my point, because now I'm getting upset. So I'm trying to calm myself down. Like, this situation is not hard to understand. Okay? It's not hard to understand. It's really not hard to understand. It's not. It's not hard to understand. And it makes me really, hold on, somebody else is texting me, y'all. Okay. So, that is my whole thing. It's like, there's a war on our people, and under normal circumstances, as I said before, I wouldn't even waste my time talking to a racist about any of this, because I don't have to educate you. I don't have time to spend. It's too much going on. But in this situation, when you have someone who has worked with our people, worked in our communities, we have to make sure that they are exposed. Okay, because this happens all too often. There are too many people in our movement marching with us, talking with us, people who are all around us, and they are the part of, they're not a part of the problem. They are the problem. They're the same ones that will kill us and get away with it, okay? They're the same ones that they daddy and they granddaddy and they granddaddy's granddaddy owned our people. And so now they get to work around us, and they get to exploit our culture, and they get to make money off of us, and they get to be friends with us and show up at our barbecues and baby showers and other activities. And meanwhile, behind the scenes, they're the ones that's calling us niggas to their kids and teaching their children to hate us, okay? And they believe that Breonna Taylor really should, hey, it's not good that she was killed. Wish that didn't happen. But hey, she was running packs out of her home. And so, these things happen. That is the narrative that these people are using. And meanwhile, you're walking in the middle of a march or at your job or in your school. These people are educating our children. These people are selling us food. These people are in our movements. These people work next to us. These people are running institutions and companies that we're pouring our money into, banks, cars. I mean, we're living in we're living around it. It's everywhere around us. So when we find them, we have to expose them, and we cannot allow them to continue to make money off of our communities. I mean, we just can't. So the whole idea that I mean, it just, like I said, it really, and I'm getting off of here now, but it really makes my skin bubble when I hear people trying to make excuses for what happened to Breonna, okay? Because like I said, they're not running up in the homes of all of these people, rich people, who are friends with the owners of pharmaceutical companies. They're not running up in the homes of these families who are connected to known drug lords. They're not doing that. They only do that shit when it comes to black people who are living day to day just trying to get by. Ain't nobody getting ready to run up in wherever into God knows whose home and shoot they white wife because they may have dated or been around someone who could have possibly been involved in selling a little bit of drugs. It just doesn't happen. Ain't nobody ever shoot freaking Richard Nixon's children, and we know that because of his administration, they pumped drugs into our communities that killed our people. Like, we know that. They came out with a report last year that said after all of this time, well, we already know, Richard Nixon and his administration was responsible for, during the war on drugs, for also they were pumping the drugs into our communities and then looking for ways to criminalize us. And of course, over many years and many presidents, including Bill Clinton and others, they used it as an opportunity to crack down on drugs in our community and put black men, black women, black families in prison, and to take away our lives. And they never came into our communities and said, well, as they are with the opioid crisis, that, oh, well, it's a mental health issue. It's a public health crisis. And now we're going to bring services to your people, and we're going to try to build up the community and help people to get themselves clean. That never happened. So, no, it's not okay. Breonna Taylor's life was taken way too short. The entire community has been traumatized. Her family has been traumatized. I'm traumatized. Breonna Taylor is my sister. Breonna Taylor is we love her. She's everything to us. And we're going to fight for this young sister until the end. And if you are someone who doesn't agree with that, especially if you a white person who doesn't agree with it, or you feel whatever, keep it to yourself. Go talk to your other white friends that you sit around and make racist jokes with about us. But don't say it and then expect to still be included and invited to the barbecue, because that just can't happen. So that's my advice for white people is to be quiet unless you have something. Be quiet unless you have something productive to say. There's so many comments on here. I can't read them all, but I think most of y'all are probably saying that you understand. So if there's any other discrepancies, please. Breonna Taylor was not sleeping. She was awake and alive at the time that she was shot, which makes the situation even worse. She was alive after she was shot. They were not at the wrong home. That's another thing. One more thing. Let me get that straight. They were not at the wrong home, family. They had a warrant to go specifically to Breonna's home. So it was not, they knew that she was affiliated with this guy at some point in her life, that she dated this guy or whatever, they were friends at some point in her life. And so she was so the warrant was executed because they were on a witch hunt to see if they could try to find the drugs that they claimed he had. All of these drugs, they were trying to find them, and so they were going to different homes affiliated with him. And so they weren't in the wrong place. But the bottom line is, if that woman was not indicated in a drug ring, if there was no evidence that she had any type of, she didn't have a criminal background, Kenny Walker didn't have a criminal background, Janai didn't have a criminal background, she had never been in trouble for anything, the post office never said that any suspicious packages were going there. So in that case, they should have got the warrant done the right way. Then they should show up at the young woman's house and with a warrant presented and ask for a legal search. What they did was illegal and it was criminal, and they killed her. They murdered her for no reason. And yes, he was already in jail. Okay, so that's it. Lanita, anything I'm missing? I don't think so. She ain't saying nothing. So that's it. That's my story for today, y'all. I hope I was able to shed some light on a few things that people may have been feeling confused about. Let me see if this is... Yeah, no. All right. I think we all good. Take care, y'all. Love you, and we'll talk again soon. I think you all know, I may have said it already, but don't tell anybody else. Just us, the people who are on this live right now, that will be in Kentucky in a few days. All right. Peace out.